Rena Lesnar, known to fans as Sable, didn't break the mold of the WWE Diva. She built it. Here's how she went from valet to the prototypical diva, and why she left it all behind. Way before she was Sable bombing her way to championships, Sable made her WWF debut as the arm candy for Triple H, then known as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, at WrestleMania 12 in 1996. The on-screen relationship didn't last long though. After Triple H lost to the Ultimate Warrior, he began mistreating her, leading to her then real-life husband, Mark Mero, rescuing her. That led to Sable managing Mero, and it wasn't long before she was overshadowing him, becoming far more popular with fans than he was. This allegedly made Mero resent her, ultimately spilling into their on-screen storylines. On a 2013 podcast, Mero denied that this was the case though, and instead praised his now ex-wife for becoming as popular as she did while he was injured.
All in all, you look back on your career and you think, well, I could have changed this or not done this, but you know what? I have no regrets.
Mero also claimed that the jealousy bit was simply an angle that he went along with. Following weeks of tension with Mero, Sable was replaced by Jacqueline, leading to Sable's transition into wrestling. In a 1999 interview with the Ottawa Sun, Sable discussed how becoming a wrestler was a huge left turn in her life. She debuted in the WWF after having a career as a model for companies including L'Oreal, Guess, and Pepsi. She said, "I always wanted to be an entertainer, a singer, maybe a famous model, but I never dreamt I'd become a wrestler." Sable's first actual feud was with Luna Vachon. Things quickly turned violent during a 1998 episode of Monday Night Raw. Sable and Vachon had to be restrained by Mero, Goldust, and scores of security guards as they tried to tear one another apart. The two women would finally have a chance at one another at WrestleMania 14, where Sable and Vachon teamed up with Mero and Goldust, respectively, in a mixed tag team match.
She was being the bully, and sometimes they don't always come out on top.
Jacqueline, who became Mero's new valet a little later, was Sable's second rival. The two eventually clashed at Fully Loaded 1998 in an infamous bikini contest. The two then had an actual match at that year's Survivor Series, where Sable defeated Jacqueline to capture the WWF Women's Championship. With Sable's championship run came mainstream appeal, including an appearance in Playboy. The fame turned Sable's TV character from a beloved babyface into a vain heel. But even with all her success, backstage politics apparently worked against Sable. Former WWE writer Vince Russo claimed on the Busted Open podcast that sexism dropped Sable's stock. She was stripped of the Women's Championship on a 1999 Raw. Following her title loss, Sable temporarily parted ways with the WWF. She also filed a $110 million lawsuit against the company, claiming sexual harassment and an unsafe working environment. Her time away from wrestling allowed her to appear in a few films and television series, including the 2001 mafia comedy Corky Romano. She said at the time she had no intention of coming back to wrestling.
I think the way that wrestling is today, the industry is, I think that I would have to say no.
The suit was settled out of court, and Sable eventually returned to WWE in 2003, shortly after WrestleMania 19. She ended up in an on-screen romance with none other than then WWE chairman Vince McMahon, in an attempt to get under the skin of his daughter, Stephanie McMahon. The two women then began feuding, leading to a few brawls before they had a no-count-out match at Vengeance 2003. Sable walked away victorious. The feud between Sable and Stephanie also led to an I Quit match between Stephanie and Vince at No Mercy 2003. Vince shockingly choked Stephanie with a pipe before Linda McMahon stepped in to throw in the towel on her daughter's behalf. Sable had no role in that match, which was probably ultimately a good thing for her. Much like Sable, Torrie Wilson had a career as a model before entering the wrestling business as a valet in 1999. Wilson eventually made her way to the ring during her time in WCW. She jumped to WWE after WCW folded in 2001 during Sable's wrestling sabbatical. Naturally, upon Sable's return to WWE, she and Wilson quickly entered into a rivalry. Wilson clearly occupied the space Sable used to, and even posed for Playboy, which of course meant that the crux of their feud was to determine who was hotter than the other. Their first clash was a bikini contest at Judgment Day 2003, where Wilson shockingly walked away with the victory. Sable then began her storyline with the McMahons before finding common ground with Wilson and teaming up not only in the ring, but also for a shared Playboy photo shoot. Sable and Wilson had their highest profile tag team match at WrestleMania 20, where they faced off with Stacy Keibler and Miss Jackie. The two then reignited their rivalry, leading to a match at the Great American Bash 2004, and Sable's final WWE and match on the SmackDown following the pay-per-view, where she lost to Wilson. During her second WWE run, Sable started dating Brock Lesnar, who had quickly become one of the biggest stars in the company. Notably, their relationship started while Sable was still married to Mero, though Mero has said he quickly forgave all once he found out the guy his wife was dating was nicknamed the Beast Incarnate. In 2004, Lesnar decided to take an 8-year hiatus from WWE to pursue professional football, wrestle in Japan, and fight in the UFC. Sable walked away with him, and the two got married in 2006. They have 2 children together.
What we've actually done with our life now is try to simplify it a little bit. It makes it a lot easier.
Sable and Brock's love story was apparently tumultuous. According to Brock's autobiography, Death Clutch, My Story of Determination, Domination, and Survival, he had to break into Sable and Mero's house to see her because she refused to talk to him. Sable has accompanied Lesnar in New Japan Pro Wrestling as a special guest and stood by him in his UFC debut. She has otherwise made very few public appearances over the past 2 decades, none of them on WWE television, but her mark on wrestling and influence clearly remain.